Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to visit Washington DC this week for talks with US President Donald Trump. Zelensky will also meet US energy and defense firms and discuss Ukraine's Tomahawk missile needs. US, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey have signed a joint Gaza declaration backing a ceasefire deal. Mediators signed the document alongside US President Donald Trump. China previously reacted to this proposal but has made no further comments since then. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that US President Donald Trump remains on track to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month as the two countries try to de-escalate tensions over tariff threats and export controls. Bessent stated that there were substantial communications between both sides over the weekend and more meetings are expected. US and China have rolled out special port fees on shipping firms registered in both countries as the trade war between the world's two largest economies expands. Now, the US first announced this fee earlier this year, and China has levied reciprocal fees for US-linked ships in its ports. Now, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has announced that the European Union will allocate 10 million euros to help establish a special tribunal to prosecute Russia's crime of aggression. She has also pledged an additional 6 million euros to support Ukrainian children deported by Russia and survivors of sexual violence. Torrential rains that inundated Mexico last week have now killed at least 64 people and 65 others are reported missing after this tropical depression triggered landslides and flooding in parts of the Gulf Coast and central states. US President Donald Trump will be visiting Malaysia on the 26th of October and Malaysia and the United States will facilitate the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, which will require both sides to remove all mines and heavy artillery from their borders. And the Foreign Minister Mohammed Hassan has stated that President Trump is looking forward to witnessing the signing of this ceasefire agreement. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. US, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey have signed the Gaza Declaration at the Gaza Peace Summit in Egypt. US President Donald Trump, along with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Emir of Qatar Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan have signed a declaration meant to cement a ceasefire in Gaza hours after Israel and Hamas exchanged hostages and prisoners. Now, the summit has also been attended by several world leaders, including UK's Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, Canada's Mark Carney, UN Chief Antonio Guterres, Italy's Giorgia Meloni, Spain's Pedro Sanchez as well. World leaders have posed for a family photo at the summit as well. We'll try to put that photo up in a while, but in the meantime, President Trump has stated that this peace summit and the signing of the document is a tremendous moment for the world and that the document in itself is very comprehensive and lays out rules and regulations. Listen in.
Everybody, this is a tremendous day for the world. It's a tremendous day for the Middle East. And you can see that this is probably the greatest assemblage of countries in terms of wealth and power maybe ever assembled. And it's just an honor to be a part of it. We're going to be signing a document that's going to spell out a lot of rules and regulations and lots of other things. And it's very comprehensive, but We've already signed documents in the Middle East and having to do with Israel and Hamas and just about everything else.
Meanwhile, Egyptian President El-Sisi has stated that the Gaza deal opens a new era of peace and stability for the Middle East. He's also added that Egypt will host a conference on the reconstruction of Gaza. Listen in.
وستعمل مصر مع الولايات المتحدة وبالتنسيق مع كافة الشركاء خلال الأيام القادمة على وضع الأسس المشتركة للمضي قدما في إعادة الإعمار للقطاع دون إبطاء. ونعتزم في هذا السياق استضافة مؤتمر التعافي المبكر وإعادة الإعمار والتنمية، والذي سيبنى على خطتكم لإنهاء الحرب وميلاد بارقة الأمل في أن يغلق هذا الاتفاق صفحة أليمة في تاريخ البشرية ويفتح الباب لعهد جديد من السلام والاستقرار في الشرق الأوسط.
With us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne, International Affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've witnessed history with the signing of this deal, with the exchange of the prisoners and the hostages between Israel and Gaza that had taken place yesterday itself. There's a lot of jubilation on the ground, but also cautious optimism, because there are concerns whether this fragile peace will hold or not. What's your assessment? Are we seeing now the ceasefire that has come into effect probably setting the tone for ensuring peace in the Middle East in the long run?
Yeah, you used the correct term, cautious optimism. So there is euphoria that this is the very beginning of the resolution of many disputes in the Middle East. The moment to transform the Middle East from a region known for conflict to a region of peace. So
hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX Eurozone. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Russian forces have struck a UN aid convoy in the partially occupied southern Kherson region of Ukraine. The head of the region's military administration has stated that the Russian drone and artillery attack happened near the frontline town of Bilozerka. The European Union has slapped luxury fashion brands Gucci, Chloe and Loewe with fines amounting to more than 157 million euros for violating competition rules. The European Commission has stated that it levied these fines because the three brands restricted the ability of independent third-party retailers they work with to set their own online and offline retail prices. French President Emmanuel Macron has rejected calls to resign and blasted his opponents as his latest government was threatened by two no-confidence motions that could bring it down by the end of the week. France is in the midst of its worst political crisis in decades as a succession of minority governments seek to push deficit-reducing budgets through a truculent legislature split into three distinct ideological blocs. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has announced that the European Union will allocate 10 million euros to help establish a special tribunal to prosecute Russia's crime of aggression. She's also pledged an additional 6 million euros to support Ukrainian children deported by Russia and survivors of sexual violence. US and China have rolled out special port fees on shipping firms registered in either countries as the trade war between the world's two largest economies expands. The US first announced this fee earlier this year, and China has levied reciprocal fees for US-linked ships in its ports. Torrential rains lashed Mexico earlier, and the death toll is standing at 64. 65 others are missing after landslides and floodings have taken place in parts of the Gulf Coast and central states. US President Donald Trump will be visiting Malaysia on the 26th of October and will facilitate the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, which will require both sides to remove all mines and heavy artillery from their borders. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson has stated that the recent claim by France, Germany and Britain about their determination to reinitiate nuclear negotiations with Iran lacks goodwill and sincerity. Well, viewers, those are the headlines. Our top focus: the European Rights Court has ordered Russia to pay Georgia over 253 million euros for preventing people